just knows this place works. So I don't know. It may be because it knows well. I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna send down for an email.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I think the other consultants are really interested in this. The other consultants.
The only other thing is.
There's nothing to it.
You know, because.
You should see a picture.
Are you coming down to that meeting tomorrow? I mean, if I have a process. Ports.
Oh, Howard.
Oh, you know, if I have to do my wife.
Peter
Or G.
Free download.
Yeah. Thank you.
But Marcus was.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah. Old.
Talked to him and those were good friends with.
Tom Bradley.
And.
Anything housekeeping?
Yeah.
Thank you for participating in today's meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. If translation is provided, click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you're in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby or complete a blue speaker card as available. If you need assistance, please find a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. Countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making a public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-3247. That's 909-396-3247. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
You're the real character.
Okay. All right, great. Good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody this morning. We're going to start off with our review of our agenda. The first item on our list is a review of the upcoming board meeting for March 6th. So before we start that, I want to say that this meeting is a little special in that we're having our technology showcase. So there's flyers in the middle of the table where you can see that information. That showcase will be going on between 9:30 and noon during our board meeting, but looks pretty cool. So encourage people to check that out. All right, now we'll start the review of our board agenda. I want to flip to page 6. We start off with a staff presentation / board discussion and item 19. Jason Asfel, take it away.
All right, good morning, everyone. This is going to be our regular status update for the permitting enhancement program. We'll be touching on an update of some of our short and long-term efforts. The good news is our production is back up, the permitting production for calendar year 2024. Production increased by 13%, so that's a big one. We still got a lot of work to do. We're making steady progress on it, but we'll be giving an update on that, some of our initiatives and goals. And then there'll be a focus on our certified permit professional program, which is part of PEP, and we're going to be revisiting that program. And then status update on some of the other items and also the IM related items as well under that. Take any questions on that.
One question. It seems like the backlog was increasing toward the end of the year. Was that true? The backlog?
Of total inventory?
Yeah.
So typically we do see a slight seasonal swing to that and then production picks up after the holidays.
Okay.
It's, I would say within norms, but we do make sure we have several initiatives to try and get back on course for our course.
Okay, seeing no further questions on this item, moving on to item number 20. So this is under public hearings. And so this next item is Aaron's. Aaron's, go ahead.
Thanks, Sarah. So this is our annual Clean Fuels Program update and looking forward to 2025. So just a summary, last year, the Clean Fuels Program spent around $8.5 million in Clean Fuels funds. A lot of that went to the health impact studies. So we're supporting the Main 6 study. It's going to start this year. Also, there's a brake tire emission studies part of this, along with a ethylene oxide source characterization study as part of MATES. And then one more ethylene oxide, looking at the potential for secondary creation of ethylene oxide at very low levels in the atmosphere side. And then looking forward to this year, 2025, we have a breakdown, and a lot of the focus is going to continue on zero emission technologies, hydrogen, battery electric technologies, and also infrastructure. We're looking at ways that we can help have interim power solutions for charging trucks or other pieces of equipment. And I'll stop there. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Last year, when February, when we heard this last year, you would set percentages in regard to various activities that you expect this in 2024. And on one of them, which was health studies, it said 4%. But in the program, it showed that we actually sent 75% of the money into health studies last year. I didn't quite understand why there was such a difference in regard to what your goal was and what you actually did.
Well, that was, I don't think we accounted for the Main 6 study in 2023, so we put it in 2024. So that was help fund the study this last year. And then when we have those potential, what we're going to do in 2024 or 2025 looking forward, those are the projects that we know about, and a lot of them don't come to fruition. So we have anticipated projects and then looking forward, but we never really match up that pie chart every year. When you look back at the year, so.
I have a comment. This Clean Fuels Program is a great program. It's been going on many years. It's initiated a lot of technologies. One thing that seems like we have changed is my question is regarding the timing. When Dennis Yates was a board member here, he suggested, and we followed that usual, that this is supposed to go to the legislature in March. So when the report comes to our board in March, in case the board members have some comments regarding the upcoming plan, there's no room for any change. So basically, we present that to the board members saying, here, this is what it is, vote yes for it. So back then, when Dennis Yates was here, he suggested to go to the board in February. So in case for the projects that are done, they are done. But for the upcoming plan, if they have any suggestion, then there's a month to do some adjustments before going to the legislature. To me, that sounded reasonable. I don't know why we have reverted back going to March. I think it would be more useful. The board members would feel they can give some input. I know we are not obligated to hold the exact percentages, but at least the guidelines, the suggestions that they have, they will have an opportunity to give. So for next year, I would suggest that. And my second comment is that I think I would do, even given the current situation with the federal government, with legislature and all that. We get 12 million a year. I would be more vigilant of spending that money on projects. If someone sees we are underspending, it may create some comments at the legislature, which may open other inquiries. So I would say, at least during this time, I would make sure that in the upcoming year, all the funds are committed to projects.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Fred. Go ahead, Andy.
Just a general comment, years and years ago, it was just all CNG all the time, and it was super simple. Just if you look at the report, the mix and match of technologies and how people are hydrogen and batteries and all that stuff, it's for those of us of a certain age, it's like beta versus VHS on steroids. It's really interesting, is my comment.
Okay, appreciate that. Any other comments on this item? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 21, and I believe David Ono is going to present that for us, and he is online.
Good morning. This is a routine report that we do every year for the Reclaim annual audit. The results show that we're in programmatic compliance with the milestones set. There is an ongoing RTC price threshold exceedance that was reviewed and analyzed previously. The circumstances haven't changed for that, so we continue to recommend no further changes to the program with respect to that. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for David?
At some point, Reclaim just completely go away? Are you guys kind of paper working this? Whatever, I'm not a money guy, so I really.
I would love for that to happen.
The wish.
Yeah. The challenge that we have is sort of the reconciliation between Reclaim and the federal government. And so we're trying to come up with ways that would give confidence to EPA that the program is doing what was intended. Part of what we're doing right now on a national level is looking at what are some of the things that are really important for us. This is one of those issues that affects not just us, NSR reform, but so many other agencies. We're just probably in one of the most unique situations because of our extreme non-attainment status. And so things that we would propose aren't necessarily things that you would want to see in other areas. But what we want to make sure is that if anything that we do on the national level doesn't take other areas off the hook for doing what should be done. And that's why it's a very delicate situation. I hope this year we'll see some real movement on it. It's hard to say whether or not that'll happen. One, whether or not the Region 9 is in question, whether or not you're going to have the staff that are going to have the wherewithal, the experience, and the technical expertise to actually deal with it, because it's a very complex subject, is something that we're continuing to work with not only EPA, but Congress. So I wish we could do it, but we really can't. I don't know if Sarah or Susan want to add to that.
No, I think you pretty much said it from my
Does
perspective.
anybody else have an analogous cap and trade program like this?
Reclaim's pretty unique.
Yeah.
Well, that's a thought.
Yeah.
Any other question on this item? All right, seeing none, let's move to the front of the board agenda. So flip to page 3 of the package. And we'll start off on item number 2, and that's Aaron.
Yeah, this is just a recent RFP for our annual Car Wire program funding announcement. So just a couple of minor changes to Car Wire. We had a state bill that was sponsored by South Coast AQMD last year, so that disbursement of the funds can occur over 6 years now instead of 4 years, which helps spend the project funds. And then we also had an increase in administration fees up to 12.5% to help us administer those. So with that, I'll just stop and there's any questions on Wire.
Okay. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the next item. The next two items are Ron's, so I'll hand it over to you, Ron.
Thank you, Sarah. This action is to obtain approval for the purchase of hardware and software maintenance for services, support for servers and for devices from Hewlett Packard Enterprise Company for 1 year in an amount not to exceed $190,000. Funds for these purchases are included in our budget, and I'm happy to answer it. Next item. This action is to authorize the purchase of Microsoft software and support for a period of 3 years in an amount not to exceed $380,000. Funds for the first year are included in our current fiscal budget and with provisions for subsequent years to be included in future budget requests. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ron? All right. Seeing none of that, we'll move on. We're on page 4. Items 5 through 11 are information only, receive and file. Any questions on those items? Okay. And-
Reports still fall sometime?
Wait, what was that?
Reports still fall? sometime?
Reports, we're looking at third quarter, hopefully in the beginning part of the third quarter, but yes. Okay, flip to page 5. We have items 12 through 17. These are the bids for committees. Any questions?
Two that would fall under legislative, do we know what monies they might, what federal funding is at risk? Dura, PEG, or $500 million with climate in the thing, must have a big red target on its back.
Yes.
You know,
There's no rules, there's no knowing.
but we don't have an indication yet what they might.
No, I'll just say this. I had a chance yesterday to speak to one of the congressional members. And he was of the mindset that California can lose a lot of the funding. But at least what he was trying to do was to make sure that funding that may be diverted from other projects still stays in California. And so it's hard to say what they're going to do right now because there's just so much uncertainty. But if they do repeal IRA and they repeal high-speed rail, it could, if they're successful, still leave a pot of funding that might be available for projects within the state. And I think what I heard was that goods movement sector is still a good area. What I also heard was that, a lot of the green technologies, probably we should be looking at other concepts, including hybrids. Aaron, does that sound about right? So there's no rules. Anything that we could have gone by in the past is out the window. Nobody knows.
Is any of that 500 million affected, or at least is that safe?
No, I don't think it's safe at all. They're trying to claw back all the IRA funds.
So it has been appropriated but not allocated. Is that what it is with the 500 million?
Well, the way that the federal funds work is they're paid in arrears. You have to incur the expense and then you go for recovery. But no one's going to implement a project if they're uncertain whether or not you're going to be reimbursed. And that's where everything is right now when it comes to the federal government. So we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that our representatives and many other representatives that rely on funding in their states for jobs understand what those potential impacts are.
It seems like that's a catch-22.
How
Because
so?
then they can, well, if we don't do something and then ask for reimbursement, they could come back and say, well, they never did anything.
Well,
Now, I'm not saying we front $500 million because I don't think we have it, right? But it just seems like that's a horrible catch-22.
but is that their intent?
Well, but
Create so much uncertainty that nobody would do it?
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's like you said.
Yeah.
To me, it's not even a question of sort of our intent, because we want the projects to go forward. but it's the OEMs, it's the people that would be doing the work. Can they afford to do the work if there's even a hint that they may not get paid? And that's unfortunately the challenge that we face.
How about the DERA projects that we get every year and then
Even Deere is on the block, right?
the ones that are on their way, the ones that the work has started, funding for that can still be lost?
In the past, I would have said no, but now I have no idea. Lorraine, you have some insight?
No,
Oh,
no, I mean, well, I think, was it yesterday, they suspended credit cards for federal workers who were like on travel in the middle of their travel, already gone, I don't think that we have any idea of what might happen.
I agree. I mean, we used to say, well, this is the legal procedure. This is what we understand. This is what the process you would have to go through. All that's out.
Oh, on that cheery note, that concludes our review of the board agenda.
Actually, one more question.
Okay.
Since we're a little ahead of time. Could you put a little more meat on the bones about the sponsored leg for the emergency response thing? Is that something you could do like with just inventory and planning and stuff, or would there be a major new expense for creating these health offices of emergency management? What would that look like? We have a big fire or the farmer blows up or something. How would that work? What would it look like? And what's different from the incident command system now that you guys already participate in? Shane?
I'll go with this. I think that for incidents as significant as what we saw in Palisades and Eden areas, there's inadequate preparation to deal with things of that scale. And I would say that from across the board, because you have so many resources that are coming in all at once. The coordination, especially in a high pressure, short time environment, is immense. And what we find is that, for instance, the governor's office wanted to be able to deploy more, but the governor's office doesn't have those resources through either their agencies such as CARB. CARB they were directed to deploy monitors. They don't really have that capability, and their personnel don't have the training. And they don't necessarily integrate at the local level with our teams. So part of the rationale was discussions were going on from the governor's office, Cal EPA, CARB, myself, and our staff in terms of what we could do and what we couldn't do. And what became very apparent is that coordination and the ability to deploy resources quickly. We are unique in the nation in the sense that we do have the ability to deploy mobile platforms, and we can deploy fairly quickly the stationary platforms. The challenge is making sure that we do it in a manner that's safe, make sure that we do it in a manner that's consistent with the ongoing first responders, and make sure that we can do it in a manner where all of those things are coordinated. And I can tell you that in the fire response, it hasn't been as coordinated as it should be. And we're seeing the public express a lot of concerns and doubt about who's doing what. And on top of that, when you layer in the federal government, who has their own practices, it's very difficult. I can tell you this. For the feds, one of the things that I saw at EPA when I was there was that there was this huge delay on release of data, and it caused tremendous problems. I did not want for this agency to have that problem. And that's why we built up the resources. And it's why we can be asked by San Diego to provide emergency assistance in San Diego and still bring our team back and then do the things that we need to do when we're hit with emergencies. What this bill is intended to do is to make sure that there are additional resources so that our people aren't stretched so thin that we have limited number of mobile platforms. And it's designed to increase the amount of integration at the state and district level so that we're better coordinated, we're better trained, we have resources that are ready to deploy. The challenge on this will be not every district in California has the type of resources and the type of highly skilled and trained people that we do. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was approach it from a regional perspective. Northern California, Southern California, Central California. We would be the model, but we would get additional resources so that we can train better, we can train more consistently, we can integrate better. And we need to do that across the board with all of the agencies so that there truly is a unified command and not a bunch of separate incident commands. So that's the intent of the bill, is to make sure that we've got the resources, to make sure we have the personnel, the training. But to me, most important of all is to make sure that that coordination happens and that when these kind of incidents occur, that we can be deployed quickly and respond readily, get the information out, and the public has confidence that we're providing them the service that they expect. So I hope that gives you more flesh.
Yeah, I kind of like there's kind of, I mean, tell my friend, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You could probably get a lot of the way there with talking and agreements and tabletop exercises without spending a boatload of money. And the other is, well, we all want everybody to have the latest, coolest, hippest things, but I mean, your cool mobile monitor could be deployed to Central California, Northern California.
Well, if we're going to do that, we need more resources, right? And that's my point is, we did deploy to San Diego to assist on an emergency they were faced with Tijuana River. But we can't support San Diego APCD and then still expect to take on the additional task that comes during an emergency. That's where the additional resources come in. And you need to have the resources to maintain those equipment, to make sure that everything's operational when you actually need it. So it's not just a one-time influx of resources. You got to maintain it. You got to drill it. You got to practice. You got to go.
It's like a fire department.
Exactly. And making sure that we integrate with the fire and communicate on what it means. And we're integrating with FEMA and all those other groups. I can tell you, it hasn't gone as well as it should have.
This is a little off topic, but because I have absolutely no life, I listened to the Mingo County Board of Supervisors meeting because I have an interest in that neck of the woods. Don't wreck your car on 395 in a launcher because you have no idea when or if an ambulance is going to get there. There's just, I mean, all of us civilians think, well, all these emergency, they have this incident command system and they're talking all the time. It's like, no, there are silos even with emergency response, and they can be tricky when it's hitting the fan to, you know. So
can you help me understand this mobile platform that we've been using? How we have one? How many?
We have three. Is Jason or
Jason's in the Zoom.
Jason?
Hi,
Dr.
great question. Great
Please
question.
describe our mobile platforms.
So yeah, we have a total of 4 working mobile platforms that do various things. As I always open up, we'd love to have like one device that can measure all pollutants in real time and produce it at the high quality gold standard level. But because we have to diversify tools, we have multiple different platforms to handle different types of tasks. So for example, we have one that does metals, we have one that does volatile organic compounds, and then we have one that's specifically tailored for the oil and gas industry to do VOCs and alkanes, et cetera. So we have just a variety to tackle that. In fact, for the recent wildfire, we had to deploy 2 of them, one for metals and one for the gaseous air toxics to address the concerns that were there.
Thank you.
we have drones yet?
Pardon?
We have drones yet? There was a big stink when the Pier fire was like 10 years ago, and You guys were asking for drones. That might have been before your time.
No, I
Everyone's
remember
freaking out
the,
about privacy and.
the drone concept.
I was gonna say, Shane was fine, but the mobile monitors will be at the tech showcase on Friday.
Yeah.
So when we say mobile, these aren't necessarily mounted on vans that drive around, right? These are,
They don't have-
they are, okay, all right, because I accompanied Michael on a site visit for a talk he's giving in Pasadena. We took the opportunity to drive up to Stratford School where we've got some temporary air monitoring that are on like pallets. So
Those are the stationary, the
they're
fixed.
stationary,
Yeah.
but they're not permanent, right? So
No.
that's why I wanted to confirm what mobile meant. Okay.
So we do have, so the way that we approach this is we need a quick snapshot in time. And the mobile platforms give us that information. It's a picture in time that as they're driving through their sampling. So these aren't health-based samples or measurements that we're taking. It's what's happening right now. And then we'll use that information to then deploy not a permanent, but a stationary platform. And I think that's probably what you saw.
Yeah.
But you can appreciate that as we're driving through these areas and we're getting readings and developing plans, the teams that are doing the driving and maintaining the instruments are the teams that have to do all the data analysis. There's only a limited amount of things that we can do, and we can't, because a lot of questions will get asked are, well, why aren't you deploying more often? Why can't you go every day? It's like, we just don't have the people and the resources to do that. That would take a tremendous amount. And I don't think that's really where we're going. We rely a lot on our regional air monitors. We rely on the stationary platforms that we can deploy. And we use the mobile to get these snapshots that will then allow us to direct where those stationary ones go. From there, we can get a better picture of what's going on. Jason, did I miss anything?
You nailed it. Thank you.
I listened, see?
I want to make sure I'm understanding one of the elements that you're talking about is better coordination with the incident command system, which, you know, I retired from medicine and we learned that lesson the hard way, that you had to have trained people that knew the incident command system. And so what they did, they started bringing in fire department leadership to come in and actually run classes on how does the incident command system work? What are the things you have to be doing? What are the elements that we have to be connected on? And it sounds like that's what's one of the things that you're trying to make sure is better integrated.
Absolutely. You know, our senior staff had all gone through ICS training, 100, 400. I think we need to sort of make sure everybody's current. But again, the purpose of this bill is to sort of look at it statewide. You know, we didn't want to go in and say, hey, just South Coast, right?
Right.
And that's why we came up with the zones for the state, Northern, Southern, Central. And that's where I was, you know, alluding to earlier, like you were saying, you've got to train.
You've got
You
to.
can't just like say, here it is, and then
Good
you're not
luck.
doing anything when it really hits the fan. Unless you've trained it, responded to it, and know what to do, it's a nightmare. And it's a high pressure nightmare. And if these are the things that are going to become more common because of climate change or other factors, then we need to be ready for it, and we need to make sure that we have the resources to deal with it. Right now, I would say we are probably the only air district in California, if not the United States, that can do the things that we do. The incident that I cited where we supported San Diego, they originally went to EPA. EPA said, we can't help you. Call South Coast. And we were able to help them. So it is a special expertise and capability, requires highly trained people, but it's not inexpensive. And I want to make sure that if we're going to continue to provide that service, that we have adequate resources and training to do it. And I think that for the state of California, we've seen that in every subsequent year, the wildfires get worse.
Yeah.
We're seeing more interaction at the urban wildland interface. we owe it to do everything that we can to be ready.
And unless you have trained people that understand the language that the fire departments are using, it's just nothing but a disconnect.
That's right.
So I
And it's not just the fire department, it's FEMA,
everybody.
it's everybody. Everybody had their own lingo.
Well, when I went through the incident command training, the first thing you had to do was some online FEMA training.
Mhm.
So I mean,
That's
it
right.
was all of it. And when you're doing it, it's like, well, I can't figure out why, I don't understand why they have me doing this. And then by the end of the class, it's like, okay, I get it. I get it.
I think most people don't realize that unified command, incident command training, unified command really came about through wildfires and the Forest Service.
Yeah.
Bringing in all the different agencies. Lorraine?
So I understand that, we're supporting this legislation to try and improve the situation and address the challenges with coordination and emergency response and making sure we have the resources to be able to deploy an emergency. I'm still just a little confused about, I think our first deployment of the mobile monitor was on January 31st. So, what was it that took that long, I guess is the question.
Yeah, so part of what was going on is that you still had active fires going. And then after that, there was still a lot of concern within those areas about access. So part of what we have to be aware and cautious of is this whole situation was unique. EPA didn't even want to go in until all the fires were out. We are not a first responder. We're a second responder. Now, do we provide support in certain instances? Absolutely. But part of the challenge is being able to go into the impacted zones. And so there's a concern about the training and about our own personnel's safety, given everything that was going on. And I think part of what we were also doing was relying on our existing monitoring system because we were looking throughout. And what we were also trying to do is really focus on the messaging, right? We still had the PM sensor data that was coming up. We were still looking at AQI. The big concern in our part and why we were working so closely with public health and CDPH and all the other groups was to make sure that we were consistent on that messaging. Regardless of what the values were, we knew that you had to take certain actions. So that drove some of the initial thinking with regards to our deployment of the units. The other aspect, as I mentioned before, was concern for personnel safety. Our people are not, Jason, I'm going to look to you to make sure I'm correct on this, but our people are not trained to go in under SCBA level B or level A where they're in self-contained breathing apparatus and be in that environment. So we had to make sure that the environment was safe. Thank you, Jason, for that. So part of what we're discussing internally is, do we in fact want to be able to do that? Do we want to train our people? Do our people even want to be put into that situation? So those are the things that we're going through internally to address these issues. But in the meantime, we're going to be conservative and we're going to be, the safety of our people is absolutely paramount. So in part, we wanted to make sure that it was safe to go in. We wanted to make sure that everything was ready to go in. And we wanted to also leverage the resources of the state. And this is where a lot of this discussion and why we have this legislation moving now is because the state was also, we rephrase that, there were certain elements of the state that were not comfortable, felt they didn't have the resources to move forward in that vein. And so there was a reliance on, well, what can you do at the district level? And so, again, I go back to, first priority is the safety of our people. B, can we in fact deploy safely and get that information out? What does that information mean and how do we coordinate it? And what are some of the resource applications that we have? One of the things, because EPA went in quickly, we tried to take advantage of was EPA's utilization of contractors to help pay for some of these aspects. And we wanted to do it in a way where we were coordinating. And getting EPA to agree to us brought us in a much more, I'll call it a much more comfortable situation where there was a lot of the coordination going on that may not have happened before then. So all of these things take time. We actually had Cal EPA and the governor's office calling, FEMA and calling the Corps and everyone else to make sure that these things could be arranged. So there was a lot of coordination that took time for us to be able to get in. Once all of that was done, we were able to go and we were able to start putting up the information. It all takes time. And that's where I go back to, had there been more training, had there been more confidence, had there been a lot of these things, I think we could have shortened that amount of time drastically. And again, that's why I think this bill is so important.
Thank you.
But just one more kind of messaging. I think the fires were still burning last time you were here, and I think Ron worried about the message that you guys were getting out. So that afternoon on the local news, the weather person was talking about air quality and the AQI, and she finished off by saying that number doesn't mean anything. If you smell smoke or whatever, then it's bad, and
Yeah, that's,
AQI is meaningless and she actually went out of her way to make that point.
well, I don't think it's meaningless. And
Well,
so
you know what I mean.
But it's
Yeah,
one metric,
right.
but you don't stop with that inquiry.
Yeah,
while
that's all.
Don't fire, don't check the AQI.
Right. If you smell smoke, it's.
People need to be reminded, right? So.
Well, with that, have we concluded the review of our board agenda?
There's a comment, Harvey.
Right, so we have to move to public comment at this point, so then maybe we can move to public comments. I have one hand raised online. Do we have a comment card in here?
No.
Okay, so I have one hand raised online. Harvey, go ahead.
Hello, am I being heard?
Go ahead, Harvey.
Okay, I'm protesting. First of all, I could not download the agenda a couple hours before the meeting, so I didn't, that's illegal. And I should have been able to talk on the item that was just up, as well as get our 3 minutes here. Okay, I want to incorporate by reference comments we made, C-SPAN's Washington Journal the last few months, couple of years, and related to fires and this and whatnot, and also related to Trump and illegality, 14th Amendment, and Special Prosecutor Smith's report. Now, one thing also, City of Santa Monica and the environmental and different commissions. We've been bringing up, and we brought in the record here, that this is climate. For 15
Harvey,
years,
can
we're
you
only-
cabin your comments to items on this agenda? And then you'll have time for general public comment later as well. Thank you.
Harvey, any other comments on the agenda?
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Etter.
How does he really feel?
all right, next hand we have raised is Moses Huerta. Moses, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Moses Huerta here. I just wanted to highlight the comments based on the incident command in the fires. I actually provide support to some of those fires being out there, and also being involved in air quality, as you know, is vitally important. And I want to support the comments that was made in enhancing and improving that process. I can tell you there, being firsthand, it is paramount to highlight that the safety. Though I do understand AQMD being a second responder, but it's vitally important to have that resource. I fully support here, not only as a community member, but somebody that actually has worked in those incidents to have that information in the data and have that resources there. So I just wanted to chime in on that real quick to let you know that it's best efforts and highlighting and keep pushing that forward. As you know, this is not getting better. I've worked 5 fires already across the state, and they're not getting easier to handle. So I just wanted to highlight and contribute that to you guys. Thank you for those comments and highlighting that the AQMD isn't being involved in that and taking the leadership. Thank you for the opportunity. Yield back my time.
Great. Thanks, Moses, for
What's
that.
the bill number and language?
Lisa, do you have the bill number?
It's AB 1106 by Michelle Rodriguez, and we're working on principal co-authors and co-authors right now as well. So likely to expand the list of legislative support.
Is there language?
Right now it's a spot bill, and we're working with CARB and Cali PA and others to put that together. It's due on Monday, so there'll be something shortly, and we'll continue to be working with stakeholders to flesh it out.
Great. All right, I don't see anything else on public comment for the board agenda items. And next item on our agenda is other business. Any other business to raise?
When's the clean fuels? The big day-long meeting, is that once a year, twice a year?
We had twice a year, so we had the plan update in September, and then we had the annual update 3 weeks ago.
No. I missed that.
All right, moving on, our next agenda item, general public comments. I'm seeing no hands raised on that. Okay, with that concludes our meeting. I'll see everybody at the board meeting.
One step.
Tech showcase.
Offsite.
It is April 4th.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Watches online.
There's no retreat. It's just the governing board meeting will be out in the desert.
Really?
Yeah.